Learning objectives. After completing these modules, learners will be able to understand the concept food security, explain the importance of food security for a country, define buffer stock and the public distribution system, list out the steps taken by the government towards food security, list out the poverty alleviation programs launched by the government, understand the role of cooperatives in successful management of the FPS. What is food security? Food security is availability, accessibility, and affordability of food to all people at all times. Availability means food produced within the country, food imported from other countries, and the previous year's stock stored in government granaries. Accessibility means food is within every person's reach. Affordability means every person has enough money to buy safe, sufficient, and nutritious food to meet one's dietary requirements. Why food security? Food security is important for various reasons. In normal times too, it is important that no person remains hungry even for a single day. And if a natural calamity like earthquake, drought, flood, tsunami, etc. occurs, there should be enough surplus stock to provide food to the affected persons. Natural calamities often lead to a shortage of food. If a calamity stretches to a very long period of time, it may lead to a situation of starvation. Widespread starvation takes shape of a famine. Famine is a situation when deaths happen due to starvation and epidemics which are caused by forced consumption of contaminated water, decayed food, and loss of resistance in a food-starved, weak body. Bengal famine in 1943 is the worst example of famine in India. A situation of this magnitude has not recurred in India again. Yet, it is sad that starvation deaths are still reported on and off from places like Kalahandi and Kashipur in Odisha and Baran district in Rajasthan. Who are food insecure? In rural areas, food insecure people comprise of landless people or small farmers with little land to depend upon, traditional artisans like weavers, potters, blacksmiths, basic service providers like barbers, sweepers, etc., and petty self-employed workers and destitute. In urban areas, food insecure families include families whose working members are employed at casual daily wage laborers or are employed in low-paying jobs. Amongst social groups, the SCs, STs, and some sections of OBCs who are either landless or have poor land productivity are prone to food insecurity. People who migrate to other regions in search of work after facing a natural disaster in their own region are also food insecure. The rate of malnutrition is high among women. Hunger is also an aspect of food insecurity. It can be chronic hunger or seasonal hunger. Chronic hunger prevails when a person is persistently earning less than his requirement and remains hungry most of the time. Seasonal hunger happens when a person is unable to get work for the entire year. In rural areas, a person may not get work when the agricultural activities for the season are over. In urban areas, casual laborers often face seasonal hunger. After independence, the Green Revolution helped increase food grain production. there has been a significant fall in seasonal as well as chronic hunger. Yet, a large proportion of people in Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, parts of Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, and eastern and southeastern Uttar Pradesh are food insecure. Food security in India. The Government of India launched Green Revolution in the early 70s to become self-sufficient in food grain production and avoid famine even in adverse weather conditions. We became self-sufficient in food grains also because a variety of crops are grown in the country. Self-sufficiency was required to feed the growing population. Be prepared in times of natural calamities. Reduce import and control prices of food grains. Food grain production increased from about 70 million tons in 1960s to 61 to about 200 million tons in 2003-2004. The government has assured availability of food grains at all times through a carefully planned food security system comprising of two components: A. Buffer stock, and B. Public distribution system. What is buffer stock? Buffer stock is the stock of food grains, wheat and rice procured by the government through the Food Corporation of India (FCI). The FCI purchases food grains at a pre-announced price called minimum support price from states which have a surplus production. The stocks purchased are stored in granaries. Buffer stock is used to distribute food grains through ration shops in the poorer section of the society at a price lower than the market price. It is also known as issue price. Buffer stock helps to overcome food grains shortage during adverse weather conditions or during the periods of calamity. What is the public distribution system? PDS is a system in which the food grains procured by the FCI are distributed among the poor through government-regulated ration shops. Ration shops, called fair price shops, stock food grains, sugar and kerosene oil for the purpose of cooking. The consumers are issued ration cards. A family with a ration card can buy 35 kg of grains, 5 liters of kerosene and 5 kg of sugar from an FPS at prices lower than the market. Rationing was introduced in India in 1940 when the Bengal famine took place. During 1960s, prior to the Green Revolution, in view of the acute food grains shortage in the country, rationing was reintroduced. In the mid-1970s, 3 important food intervention programs were introduced. 1. Public Distribution System (PDS) to make food grains available and affordable to the poorer section at lower prices. 2. Integrated Child Development Services (ICDS) was introduced in 1975 on an experimental basis to make nutritious food available to poor children. 3. Food for Work (FFW) introduced in 1977 to 78 enabled the poor to earn food in return of work. From time to time, poverty alleviation programs (POP) were introduced, especially in rural areas, to deal with the food problems. Midday Meal Program and PDS exclusively aimed at food security. Various employment schemes introduced at different times also aided in bringing food security by increasing the income of the poor. Current status of public distribution system. The PDS by the Government of India has effectively stabilized prices and made food available to consumers at affordable prices. Rationing was revived in India in 1960s due to acute food shortage. The revamped public distribution system, RPDS, introduced in 1992, provided the benefits of PDS to remote and backward areas. Targeted public distribution system, introduced in 1997, brought the benefits of PDS to poor in all areas. TPDS differential price policy targeted the poor BPL and the non-poor APL. In 2000, two special schemes, Antyodaya Anna Yojana AAY for the poorest of the poor and the Annapurna scheme APS for indigent senior citizens were introduced. Despite the government granaries overflowing with food grains, hunger has not been eradicated absolutely. In July 2002, FCI had 63 million tons of wheat and rice altogether. It is much more than the set limit of 24.3 million tons. It is wasteful to have buffer stock in excess. The food grains get rotten, eaten away by rats, and also result in deterioration of grain quality. The practice of providing MSP has encouraged many farmers to grow wheat and rice only. It has caused a shortage of coarse grains like millets and maize. Intensive cultivation of rice is a drain on groundwater level. Role of cooperatives in food security. Cooperatives have managed the PDS successfully in many parts of the country. In Tamil Nadu, around 94% of FPS are being run by the cooperatives. Mother Dairy and Amul are examples of successful cooperatives. Summary. Let us summarize what we have learnt. Food security is availability, accessibility and affordability of food to all people at all times. There should be enough surplus stock to provide food to the all affected persons during periods of bad weather and natural calamities. The poorest section of the society remains food insecure at all the times. The Government of India launched Green Revolution in the early 70s to become self-sufficient in food grain production and avoid famine even in adverse weather conditions. Buffer stock is the stock of food grains, wheat and rice, procured by the government through the Food Corporation of India FCI. Public Distribution System PDS is a system in which the food grains procured by the FCI are distributed among the poor through government-regulated ration shops. Public Distribution System PDS integrated Child Development Services ICDS and Food for Work FFW are three important food intervention programs introduced in mid-70s. Targeted Public Distribution System TPDS introduced differential price policy targeted at the poor BPL and the non-poor APL. The Antyodaya Anna Yojana AAY targeted the poorest of the poor. The Annapurna scheme APS was introduced for the indigent senior citizens. Cooperatives have managed the PDS successfully in many parts of the country.